like I said, I finished the book and loved it. I recommend everyone get it. But the G.K. Chesterton chapter, I would say, is worth the price of the book alone. The whole book is great, but that chapter was just really excellent. Tell us about Chesterton, his life, and the particular story and lesson that you pull away from his life.
Well, I'm glad you had that reaction. I love Chesterton. Obviously, C.S. Lewis is the best-known apologist of the last century, but many people don't realize how much he owed to Chesterton himself. Now, in Chesterton's case, he grew up in a wealthy-ish family in West London, but he was creative, artistic. He didn't want to go to Oxford and Cambridge with his friends, so he went to art school, the Slade College of Art. And it was kind of like postmodernism today. Bitter, cynical, debunking, deconstructing, verging on nihilism. And Chesterton was flirting, as he put it, with the dark powers and the occult. So he could have described his own position very close to that. Here is a world broken and ruined. But then suddenly, he said, he was stopped in his tracks by a dandelion. I love that. Not by a rose or a Mozart sonata or the birth of a baby or a margarita on a Californian beach. No, stopped in his tracks by a dandelion, a humble weed, but with incredible beauty. And it challenged him to see that the world certainly is broken, but it also has beauty and wonder. How on earth do you put the two together? That's what made him a seeker. And if you read his book, Orthodoxy, I love it. He's a magnificent writer. He describes his incredible eureka moment when he comes to see that the Christian faith uniquely does justice to both. Not just the brokenness or not just the beauty, but to both. Because of creation, there's incredible beauty in the world. But because of sin and alienation, there's brokenness. And you have a deep explanation for both. And Chesterton describes it almost nuts and bolts, a hole fitting a spike. And it's his eureka moment, his excitement on the page is incredible. It's palpable. And he comes to a deep and living faith in God. It's a wonderful story.
Yeah, he describes that moment and using these really illustrative terms to describe it as just everything finally falling into place and locking into where it ought to go. I guess similar to how a grandfather clock has all of its gears that fit into place, and whenever they work together, the clock strikes and chimes, and the clock was chiming in his mind, so to say, as he was discovering it. But he knew these two things, that the world was broken and that there was beauty. And so he was trying to find a grand story that explained both those things that he knew. Yeah. And then he started to apply it to, how did it, that experience, because one thing that I thought was unique about his story, and you see this in Lewis as well, was that the experience didn't just lead him to explore what made sense of that experience and then led him to Christianity, but really had an ongoing effect on his life and faith after that, in his emphasis on the beauty of all of the ordinary things in the world and on the importance of gratitude.
No, I love that about him. As you say, it's the simple things in the world and the importance of the local. He's sort of Wendell Berry before Wendell Berry. And he has a deep sense of the simple and the basic and the local in a very wonderful way. But always, as you put it, he's seeing that the faith is the key that opens the lock. And when you see the alternatives that don't work, the things that don't fit the keyhole, then you realize the wonder when you discover God's truth and how it just fits all the questions and all the problems.